Hey, Lee here. Did you know there's a lot of different ways to start mixing chords and scales? It's really good sound, something you should try to do. It's going to make you sound professional, but a lot of what I've seen deals with the open position and shuffle patterns. There's a lot of other blues songs that don't do that. Today we're going to use a more movable set of chords. You can take pieces from each of the chords and throw them into your solos and spice them up in lots of different keys. Today I'm going to be playing the key of G, and these are the chords I'm going to use. I'm going to use a regular old G7 bar chord, and then a C9 and a D9, all around here around the 3rd fret. I'm also going to keep it simple. I'm going to use the G minor pentatonic scale, pattern 1, and the G blues scale, minor blues. If you don't have the scale patterns and you need them, I've got them for you. You can click down below. I've got a big 4 scale pattern worksheet that will really help you out with this. But we're going to go ahead and get started mixing these blues licks with rhythm guitar. Let's take a look at lick number 1. So this starts right here in the middle of our blues scale or minor pentatonic scale at the 5th fret with a full bend, full step. And then we come back on a triplet. That's all on beat 4. So it's 1, 2, 3. That's the rhythm right there. It goes right into some chords. So we're going to play part of that G 7th chord that I was showing you before. It's just the D string, the G string, and the B string in that chord. 3, 4, and 3. Now, we're going to add a little motion to that. We're going to take a little bit of a C chord, barring at the 5th fret, all across the D, G, those same strings, and the B string, and back to that chord. So the first one's a quarter note, bum, bum, bum. So far the whole thing is 1, 2, 3. And then on the A and the 3, we're going to do a little upstroke there on the top of that chord. Those two things. So we have a single note leading into some chord movement and then back up to a little chord stab at the end. So now we're going to go down the blues scale, straight down, starting at the 3rd fret. G, F, D, D flat, C, B flat to G. So if we put them all together, how do we finish this off? We're going to go down to the B flat on the low string, bend it a quarter, just a little bit, and come up to the root on the 5th fret of the D string. That's an easy set of licks, and I use a lot of those ideas in my own soloing. But now we're going to continue with the 12-bar blues for lick number 2. So in lick number 2, we're getting ready for the chord change. This is where the G7 goes to our C9 chord. So in the beginning of the lick, we're going to be in the G7 area, and at the very end, we're going to slide into the new harmony. So how we're going to do this, we're going to do our little minor pentatonic, some 5th fret on the G string. Again, this is the C note bending up to the D, and then the C note by itself. And then what we're going to do is we're going to play the top 2 strings of our G7th chord, both on the 3rd fret, the high E string and the B. Now we're getting ready to slide into where the C9 is coming into. So after we play those 2 3s, we're going to play the 3rd fret with a slight little quarter step bend on there to the root. And then we're going to take some bits of some chord movement here. So we're going to start off with notes from a chord a half step above our target chord. We've all done that. You've got a chord you want to play it a half step behind or above. Has a cool sound to it. Well, we're going to reference that in our soloing here. So we're going to do those 2 chords, but we're only going to do 2 strings of them, the 2 center strings. That's going to give us a 3rd fret on the D and a 4th fret on the G string, and slide both of those back. You can hear the harmony. We're going from the 1 chord to the 4 chord. Tension and release. So the whole thing, 1, 2, 3. And you can hear right there, we're put right into the next section. So in lick number 3, we're going to be doing some little well-placed chords, chord fragments along the way. We're going to have a nice little rhythm figure, and we're going to take ourselves from the C chord back to the G7. So we're going to reference that harmony in our playing too. So I didn't write this in, but this sounds really nice. Palm muted on these, having a kind of a pizzicato sound to it. That's the scale. So we have some triplets here, 5, 3, 5. So 5 on D, 3rd fret on the G string, and then 5th fret on the G string. So that's root minor 3rd to the 4th. I'm going to do all of those. I really like the way that sounds palm muted. And then we're going to hit 3s straight across on the G, D, and high E string. That's the top of our C9 chord. It's the top 3 strings of that. And then we're going to continue with this. We're going to play the same part again, 5, 3, 5. But this time when we hit the chord, we're going to hit the 2 middle notes of the C9 chord. That's the 2nd fret on the D and the 3rd fret on the G. So far we've got. And then we're going to continue again, same idea, 5, 3, 5. But this time we're going to go up the blues scale. We're going to play the 6th fret. This is the sharp 4 of the flat 5. It's a D flat, we'll say. Up to the D. And then we're going to take these 2 middle notes again. This time we're going to go upwards. So we're going to sound like we went from the C9 back to the G7. This is kind of cool how they're both exactly the same pattern, but 2 completely different chords. So we're going to use the 3rd fret on the G string and the 2nd fret on the D string, play those together and slide them up a fret. So the whole thing sounds like this. You can hear how that brings us back to the 1. And lick number 4, we're at the place in the 12-bar blues where we're playing over the 5 chord for 1 measure and then the 4 chord for 1 measure. And we're going to reflect that in the harmony of our guitar solo. The pickup is just minor pentatonic. 3rd fret on the B, 6th fret on the B, 3rd fret on the high E string. That's 5th flat 7 root. And what we're going to do is we're going to play all 5s on the top 3 strings. That's going to be the top of our D chord. So just those 3 notes of that. But we're going to do something pretty fun with this. And this is something you can do with all these James Brown style 9th chords, is I'm going to slide those 3 notes up 2 frets and back. That's the sound of a 9th chord going to a 13th chord and then back to a 9th chord. It's a really good way to take up some time, to fill some space if you're just over 1 chord for a while. And then after we do those, we're going to do our inside 2 chord tones. So this is going to bring us down to the C9 chord. And that's the 4th fret on the G, 3rd fret on the D string, and slide them back a fret. That's going to take us back to where our C is. And then we're going to play the 13 shape, where we slid up 2 frets from our 9th chord. We're going to play all 5s and then back to our 3s. So those are outlining the C9 chord, and then back to our minor pentatonic. Minor 3rd to root, 3rd fret on the G string, 2, the 5th fret on the D string. And that takes us to our last lick, number 5. And this is one of my favorite licks to play over a turnaround. What we're going to do is we're going to take 2 lines and combine them together. So you've all heard this. Pretty cool. I like that. How about this? So we have the upward turnaround lick, and then we have the descending turnaround lick. But what happens when you put them together? Well, we get little fragments of chords and passing tones as we go. Check this out. So I'm going to start with just a G note. That's the beginning of the turnaround. Next, I'm going to play the 2 notes where they go up. So, and what are those 2 notes together? Well, we've got an F and a B. That is the third and the flat seventh. Those are two notes straight from the G seventh chord. So we have root, two of these chord tones, thirds and sevenths, very important. Now we're going to do some passing tones to get us along there. So what we're going to do is when you play the next note in the progression, that's a C on the G string and then an E note on the A string. So that's going to be one of our passing tones in between chord shape. There's our root, there's our seventh chord. Here's some passing tones and hear the tension in that. Now we're going to lower the bottom note one and raise the top note one. There's another passing chord, and then eventually those both go that same direction again. So now we're at the fifth fret on the A string and the seventh fret on the G string. That's an octave of a D. And then we play a half step above our D9 and back to the D9. So outlining chords and going through passing tones and eventually hitting the tag, the turnaround, before we take off again. I use licks similar to these in all my blues solos, but make sure you pay attention to the chord fragment shapes. Remember what chords they came from and what notes they have in common with your pentatonic scales. Then you'll be able to go back and forth seamlessly between the two. Have fun with these. If you need the backing tracks or the tabs, I have them over in the Academy. And I had a lot of fun practicing with you today. I'll see you next time.